Now let's suppose that we want to do some sort of a repetition, meaning that if we want to say S out, like that, send that out, hello there, but we want this to happen 3 times or even 10 times or even further 100 times, right? We want this to be displayed that many times. If we save this, we should see hello there as we've seen before. There we go, hello there, right? But if we want to see hello there as many times as we want to see, let's say 10 times, what we would have to do is do this, right? And continue. This is what, 6 times if you save this, and we should see all of those hello there showing there. Okay, now this is okay in a way, but at the same time you can see it's tedious, because if we want to get this hello there printed 100 times, that means we have to do this 100 times. So obviously you know where I'm going with this, and obviously you know that there should be a solution for this if I'm bringing this up. And if you thought that way, it is true indeed, we do have a solution. So the solution is the for loop, or looping in general. What it does, the for loop or looping in programming language, specifically in Java, is that it allows us to create conditions, and within those conditions we loop through, or we display whatever's inside that condition until that condition is no longer true. So that is what we call for loop. Before we go further, what I can do, let me move our console here to the right here. Maybe that will help us a little bit. So if we click on these 3 icons or 3 dots there, we can actually move this. You can't quite see because it's away from the viewing area. I can put that to the left. If you do that, it is to the left, but I actually don't want that to be left. I want that to be to the right. So I'm going to put that to the right. There we go. Now we can see our console is showing to the right. So this is going to be, I believe, a little bit more helpful, and you can give it more space there. Okay, so we can see things happening. Very good. So how do we do this for loop thing? Well, I'm going to get rid of at least all of those. To create a for loop, we just say for and hit enter at this point, right? So now we have to pass in what we call an expression. So inside here, what we will have to pass is the expression that needs to be evaluated while everything that was going to be inside of these curly braces runs. So the first thing we need to do is to create the initialization. So what is this? So I'm going to have to say int I is equal to 0, because that is our start point. So this is indeed the initialization of our variable I, which we call iterator. Now, this could be A, could be B, could be D, could be George, could be Alan, doesn't matter, but I is usually the tradition letter that's used for our initialization here. So I usually stands for iterations. Do you iterate through something? And notice we have a semicolon here because we are saying that this in itself is indeed a statement, a complete statement. However, inside of for loop, we still have to add more statements, if you will, for this to work. So once we have our initialization here, we need to add our comparison or our condition. So our condition is going to say, for instance, while I is less than, say, 10, and then we have to say I plus plus. We need to increment the I. So very simply here, we are saying create an integer, and I assign it to 0. This integer's name is I. It's going to be our iterator. Okay, and then we're going to say that while I is less than 10, we're going to increment I each time, and whatever is inside here is going to run. Meaning I can now get this and put all inside there. Okay, so the first time this loops around, I is going to be 0. It's going to go ahead and say is 0 less than 10. It is true. If that's true, then we increment I by 1. That means I1 is 1. And then it goes through and loops through once. So we should see hello there. In fact, let me clear this so we don't get confused. All right. And the second time goes, well, what is I now? I now is 1. Okay, very good. Is I less than 10, meaning it's 1 less than 10. True. Increment to 2. Show the second one. We keep going until this no longer holds true. Now, let's do a little bit of detective work. When that this no longer holds true? Well, this statement here, this condition, will no longer hold true when I is what? 10, right? Because if I is 10, then it's going to be 10 less than 10. That is not true. Hence, it will stop. Okay, so let's save this and see what's going to happen. I'm going to go ahead and run. We should see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hellos there. All right. And just like that, we were able to take all of this tedious work from trying to display all this hello there instead of copying and pasting and do all sort of stuff. Now we can automatically do that using a for loop. Right? Remember, we have to create, instantiate, or initialize our iterator, okay, that will keep count of what's going on. And we then put the condition here, the comparison, we're comparing this iterator, I is less than whatever number we want it to be, right? So if we say 20, run, we should have 20 items showing. So I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. There we go. So this number here will determine how many times we are going to see whatever is inside of our curly braces there. Okay, because this is the body of things that will run. So I can say will run this code here. Very good. Now I'm going to show you something really awesome here. We can actually append the I, so we can see as it loops through, the counter I is going to actually increment. Because now I've just told you that the I will increment, but what is the proof that it will increment? Well, if I come down here and say, give a space there and say plus, remember the appending, and append I, like that. So is this I here, our counter, our iterator. Go ahead and run. Let's see what's going to happen. There we go. So it goes, hello there, 0. Why is it 0 at first? Because at the beginning we say I is going to be equal to 0. Therefore, the first time it's going to run I is 0, and the second time I is going to be 1 because we have incremented it. So each time, the first time is going to be 0, 1, and so forth. Notice also, because it all starts from 0, this is something to remember. Well, mainly because we said it should start from 0, and you should always, most of the time, start from 0. There's exceptions, of course. Notice that, of course, we have 20 items that are being shown here, but it ends at 19. But total is 20, right? Although we start from 0. Okay, so that is the moral of this story. Very good. So now that we have this knowledge of for loops, you can do all sort of things. So now you can go ahead and say, for instance, even inside here, you can say, I want to make sure that if, right, I, remainder 2 is equal to 0, then I want to get this out of here, say hello, or I want to say I plus, say, is multiple of 2, like that. You remember this, right? Because the remainder here, it gives us the remainder, if you remember correctly, right? So that means we are now going to put an if statement inside here that says, okay, as we go through looping through in our for loop here, we also want to add an if statement that will say, okay, as we loop through, we're going to count the I, and we're going to divide this I as we go through by 2 each time, right? So if I divided by 2, the remainder is 0, then we're going to print. Otherwise, we're not going to print. So in this case here, is trying to get all the numbers from 0 to 20 that are divisible by 2. Really from 0 to 19, as you see here, because we start from 0, right? So all numbers are divisible by 2. They are indeed multiple of 2. You can see now the applicability of the remainder operator there. So save this real quick and see what's going to happen. There we go. 0 is indeed multiple of everything or anything, right? 0 is multiple of 2. 2 is indeed multiple of 2. 4 is multiple of 2, 6, and so forth. It doesn't say 19. It doesn't say 1. It doesn't say 3. So indeed, all that shows here are multiples of 2. If I change here to 3, obviously things are going to change, and I can change this to reflect those changes. Command R, and voila. 0 again is multiple of everything. 3 is multiple of 3 because 3 divided by 3 is always 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2, and so forth. Very good. So you can see now the things that you can do with the knowledge that you have of the for loops and the if statements, as well as the remainder operator there. Okay, go ahead and play around with this concept. If you want, make this a little bit more complex as you want it to be. And who knows, maybe you're going to come up with something very cool, worth sharing with us, and don't hesitate to do so. All right, folks, thank you so much for your time. I will see you in the next video.